you're well. Thank you very much for joining this special edition of TIGERBITE. I'm Derek Smith, feeling suitably excited and privileged to co-host in such exalted company this evening. And as ever, helping me steer my way through a successful interview with our special guest is Speedway Star Glasgow correspondent Brian Copeland. So last night, Glasgow Speedway announced and revealed a special visitor is going to come calling this Wednesday evening in Tigers' clash against Ipswich, and that just we had to set up a TIGERBITE special to speak to the man himself. So without further ado, it's a delight and an absolute pleasure to welcome to TIGERBITE a legend of the Speedway, the sport of Speedway, four-time and current world champion. Please be upstanding for Mr. Greg Hancock. Good evening to you, Greg.
Good evening to you guys. How's it going over there?
Very good. Apart from the weather, everything is fine here, Greg. But I understand the sunshine is on order for Wednesday night. You're flying into Glasgow. I wonder if you can tell us how that came about and what you're looking forward to seeing this week.
Well, it's long overdue, to be honest. You know, since just over a year ago, when I was lucky enough to strike a deal with you guys to have the race suits in Cardiff. The talk went back and forth between myself and Jerry and the guys there, and of course with the man himself, Mr. Gordon Perriman, who's been a key person in this whole thing. But you know, we started talking that I would make a visit to come up there and see a home match and maybe get to see some of the fans and have a chat and just kind of join in. And here we are, nearly a year and a half later, and I'm finally making the trip over. So that's about it. I was just trying to work it out logistically, and with my schedule and everything, things have turned around sadly at the moment, but it's going to be a good thing because I get to come to Glasgow.
Greg, the link up that you've had with Glasgow, you've also got some sponsorship out of that, of course. And can you talk us through the links that you've got at the moment with the club and the various people involved? Well,
you know, I mean, between you guys from Allied and of course Grant Henderson too, I mean, it's those kind of things have been ideal and very, you know, I'm very grateful for that they want to be a part of my program. And, you know, over the last year and a half, the amount of attraction that I've got from different fans and people that come and make themselves noticed and are so pleased because that we had this association with Glasgow. It's pretty cool, you know. Most of the British fans in general and the Scottish fans and everybody have always kind of accepted me no matter what, just for, you know, being around and racing in the UK and been up in Glasgow and Edinburgh quite a few times. But now with this association, you kind of feel like you're one of them, and that's pretty nice.
Greg, there's lots of very excitable people in this part of the world at the prospect of meeting you and seeing you in person on Wednesday night here in Glasgow. And I guess, and you mentioned that yourself, Greg, at the moment you're not able to compete, of course, since you're sustained that injury around the British Grand Prix time. And it would be remiss of us not to ask you about that. Could you give us an update on the injury and the prognosis and treatment required?
Well, it's sad, but what it is I've actually in your shoulder socket, the top of the shoulder capsule is what kind of holds everything into place there. So when I dislocated it broke out the side and kind of broke a piece of the capsule off, which has theoretically created like an open door for actually the arm to come out of socket on its own, you know, just in the right, or I should say in the wrong movement or in the wrong position. So as it is now, you know, I can move my arm pretty normal like everybody else can, and I don't have any unnecessary pain except for when I sleep or if I rock it backwards in the wrong manner. But if I put it in the handlebar position and lean forward, that's the position that it wants to come out in. And this injury is called a Bancart's lesion, and it's actually a classic what do you call it? Excuse me, a classic rugby injury, but I'm far from a rugby player, as you know, and this kind of thing it's you know, it feels like I'm okay because I can do everything, but like I said, in that certain position, when you lean forward, which is kind of the position going into the corners, it just creates a lot of instability.
I imagine, Greg, it can't be a good thing to lower your golf handicap, can it?
Well, my handicap in golf is a club, so it doesn't matter.
Greg, you obviously had to pull out of the Grand Prix series and then subsequently announced that your season was over just around the time of the British Grand Prix. We had seen you come out at Cardiff in the Glasgow Kevlars for the second year running, and you then had to stop racing after about a lap or so. Can you talk us through what happened over the course of those couple of days, and what your thoughts and feelings were, both physically and mentally, in terms of the injury, at Cardiff this year?
Well, that whole thing was for me was pretty hard to sort of swallow, because the injury, as I went into the corner, and actually happened in the practice day 3 times in practice, and made it actually 2 times, not 3. The 3rd time was on the race day, but just on the approach into the corner, in this position where you lean into the corner with the shoulder out and the handlebars and you go forward, the shoulder comes out the front, and I had eventually taped it really strong and had it tight, thinking I'll be fine now. I knew the injury was going to be rough, because I had dislocated it 3 times before that first heat, and it was already pretty unstable. But I just went for it and taped it really strong, because I wanted to race. I didn't want to miss another GP, and I know points are crucial. So at that stage, I didn't know how bad the injury was either. So I just went for it. And sadly, as I came around the first corner and went down the back straightaway, just as I leaned into the corner in the same position, the shoulder just pops out the front, and it's not the most pleasant thing. And I realized then that I had a pretty serious issue on my hands, because even though I had it taped up pretty good and trying really hard to hold the muscles tight, it didn't matter. It just slides out on its own, and there's not a lot you can do in that manner.
Greg, it must be a heck of a frustrating season for you, to have ended so prematurely. Given the long career that you've had, you come over to Europe in '89. Have you experienced being sidelined for such a long period before?
Probably the last time I was sidelined like this was in my 2nd season racing in Europe, and that was actually the accident happened here over in the U.S. at the American Championship in Long Beach, and I had a crash and broke the upper arm on the same side, on the left side there, and that put me out for about 3.5, almost 4 months of the year. So it happened in June, and I managed to get the last month of the season in just to make a comeback. But in this case too, it's put me out, and I tried hard to work to make the shoulder strong enough to continue the rest of the year. But I could realize as soon as I went out to get on the bike the first time that the shoulder definitely was not stable enough, and I could feel that in that position going into the corner, it wanted to hop out. So as hard as it was, I had to take the decision to say, no, I have to have the operation, and I know that operation means I've got about 4 months recovery before I can get on the bike again. So I guess still trying to swallow it, but the truth is it could have been a lot worse, and I'm happy to be able to sit here and have a chat with you guys right now.
Thank you.
So Greg, have you already had the operation, and what's the process now in terms of looking ahead to next season?
No, the operation is on the 27th of this month, so that's another reason why I'm happy that I'm able to get over to see you guys now, because then I'm going to be I won't be able to travel for a couple of weeks either, because of the just precautions. They don't want you to be flying for fears of blood clots and all that stuff. But it's more one of those things now that I should have had the operation right after the accident happened, but the doctor did say you can give it a shot and try to strengthen the muscles if you want to see if you want to ride again in a few weeks. But I don't recommend it, and I don't think you'll be able to. So of course I had to try, and he was right. Should have listened to him in the first place. But as a motorcycle rider or an athlete or whatever you want to call us, it's one of them things you don't want to give up until you know for sure that it's not possible.
Of course, Greg, for every downside, I would like to think there's always an upside. And I was going to suggest that it's allowed you to spend more family time, and perhaps to get more involved with some other initiatives, such as the Team Hancock Hajj 250 World Series, and as FIM delegate. So it sounds like you've still been a busy man.
I have had lots more time to enjoy with the family for sure, which is always nice, especially this time of year when you're going to see them on the odd days or whenever you can fit it in. But as it's turned out, my oldest son Wilbur's been racing quite a bit, and instead of having to find mechanics and people to go take him to races, now I can do all of that. So I'm out there getting my hands dirty enjoying every minute of it. But in the end, you know, this whole thing with the FIM project, with the 250 program, I've helped the FIM a couple of times over the years, and this one got a little bit more intense. I was more interested because it's a world championship now. And myself and my lead mechanic there, Raphael High, we've been talking about doing some things with the Junior Speedway and the 250 over the last few years, and kind of it's a stepping stone deal that we've been putting together. And suddenly it was like, you know what, I got the time, we might as well go for it now rather than waiting, and let's try to make this happen. So we started working. I was always going to help the 2 American boys that were coming over and with equipment, things like that. And then Raphael and I kind of put our heads together and thought, let's take this to the next level. Let's set up a official team, help we'll take the 2 American guys and we'll take 1 Polish rider. Eventually, I would really like to make this a little bit larger in some manner or some way, and help maybe a Swedish kid too, or maybe from another country that can use the help as well. So as it is, that 250 World Championship, I'm a firm believer in it, and I think that what you guys have seen this year, many of you probably haven't had a chance to see it, and if not, please look it up on the internet, find some of the races, because it was equally as good as the GP, if not better, because these guys, they didn't care about the weather, the track conditions, whatever. They were running elbow to elbow in many a heats, and those bikes can only go so fast on a big track. But anyway, being a delegate for the FIM, they invited me to come there and work with them in their academy, which I did for 2 days, and then got to focus on our team as well. So I said to them, and I'll say to you guys, you don't have enough time to sit and listen to me tell you how great it is.
Greg, you must get fed up of questions about your age as time goes forward, but obviously you've got the injury at the moment that's put you out for several months. There's no suggestion of you wanting to let that beat you and put you out for good? You're quite determined to come back next season?
Without a doubt. I mean, this question comes up every year anyway, you know, and right around this time of the year when it starts to get late, they start asking you, you know, what about next year? Are you going to call it a year? Are you going to take another year? And I'm going to retire. I just don't know when. That's something like this is such a setback, and definitely not the way I would have pictured myself finishing my career. So I'm not gonna bite down on that one. I'm gonna sort of look ahead and get through this, and I want to finish the way I want to finish. I
wasn't going to mention your age, Greg. Greg, what's your own personal hopes, I guess, and well, hopes probably is the right word, given the GP series for next year? Would you be looking for a favour, I guess, out of respect from the FIM to take part next year?
Well, you know, I've always said that if I didn't qualify for the World Championship, I didn't deserve to be there. So, you know, I know this is an injury or something like that has basically stopped me in my tracks. And now you're sitting back going, man, oh, you know, so could have bit my lip back then. But as it is, I would hope that the FIM would offer me a position, and I think they will. However, you know, I mean, things can change every year, and there's new possibilities, there's new riders, there's new people coming in all the time. So you never know. But you know, I believe that they're going to work with me on this one, and you know, I can only sit back and hope right now. But I think it'll be all right.
We'll keep our fingers crossed with you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks. I need that.
You've been involved in this year's series, of course, until you had to pull out, Greg. And before the season started, a lot of people were saying that they thought it was possibly the strongest ever lineup that they've had for the series since it began. Do you think that's been borne out by what has happened this year so far and the unpredictability of the meetings?
Well, saying it's the strongest, I wouldn't agree so much, because there's been some pretty strong Grand Prix lineups over the years, and it would be unfair to say that, because some of the years that I've been involved, when you look at the names that are on the paper, you go, wow. But the difference is probably the consistency of the guys. You look at the consistency of this group and the abilities of this group. The guys are figuring it out. There's a lot more guys that are spread all the way through the lineup who are capable of winning, where it hasn't always been like that. So not that they're any stronger than the other ones. It's just more that they're more consistent, and they all have their heads together now. So it's making it much more difficult to win. And you've seen how many different winners we've had this year, which is awesome, I think, for the series. The promoters must be digging it very much. And then you saw the other night, there wasn't even a Polish rider in the final, so it feels kind of strange.
Greg, in the past, or in recent years, really, you were, of course, a mentor to Magic Janowski, a young Polish rider as he was at that time. And he's doing rather well this year, currently in third place, 3 points behind second place, I believe, and 13 or so points behind Jason Doyle as things stand. I was going to ask, when you think back to when you first sighted Magic as a young man, as a rider, what were the qualities that you noticed at that time that led you to believe that he could do exactly what he's doing now?
Well, I can't take credit for finding Maciek. That's Rafael High there. That's my mechanic and partner now in the team that we have. It's he that found Maciek, and Maciek's kind of was always living in the area and came basically. Rafael picked him up and started to help him from a pretty young age. I mean, he was 10 years old or something when I met him, and he started to travel quite a lot with Rafael around and came to a lot of races and would hang out in the pits. And he didn't speak any English, of course, either back then, so it was hard to communicate with him, but we understood everything we were trying to say to each other, you know. So, but one thing about that kid is his demeanor and his personality are amazing, you know. I mean, he's just an all-around great kid. He's got all the characteristics of a champion, of a good friend, of just a great person. So the only downside for me about Maciek is I wish he was an American.
Well, we've talked before when we chatted to you during the close season, Greg. We talked about that sort of young raft of American riders coming through, and of course, since then we've seen some of them in the World Cup. So you must be pleased at what you saw during the World Cup, and there was a few performances that caught the eye, and perhaps one or two of them putting themselves in the shop window for a team place over here.
Absolutely. Now, this is long overdue, in my own opinion. That we've got so many good and talented American kids right now that have enough ability to come and take a shot at European racing. And but you know, the classic thing, as you've probably heard it before too, is to leave the shores of California and come overseas. They think it's, you know, it's so far away, but it is a long way away, but it's only 10 hours on the plane, and you're in another place, and you're in the Mecca of Speedway for wherever you want to be. And but you're leaving home, you're leaving the sunshine, you're leaving the weather. I mean, your parents, the food, the culture, and just the ease of doing everything that you've done every day. So a lot of them aren't prepared to do that. So this year was kind of cool because Brock Nickel made a trip over and spent about 7 weeks with us. Stayed with Maciej Janowski for probably 5 of those weeks, just hanging out with him. So the amount of time that kid had with us, learning what we do, how we do it, practicing, I don't know how many times he rode with us, 5, 6 times in training, and then was with Maciej for a number of practice sessions and did a lot of races. He got so much experience, and he had his dark days where I think he wished he wouldn't have been here too, and just wanted to go home. But at that point, he could have gone home at any time, but he didn't. And it's just to get over that bar, and he did it, which is fantastic. So we have to let him be the next advocate for showing these guys. And now the young Americans came in the 250. They had a great time, and that was the other thing, is that whole program of the World Championship. They run like a 4 or 5 day academy there. They put all these kids together. They get to hang out with each other, talk with each other, play with each other, like football and water sports, and they're training together, and suddenly they make friends. As Jan Steckman said, they become buddies, and you never know that these guys might end up being your friends for the next 30 or 40 years, and you don't even know it right now. But it's you got to take it with open arms and sort of don't go with tunnel vision either. You got to be open-eyed and just take it all in and go for it. So these guys went home more hungry than they were when they got here.
Certainly some encouraging signs for American Speedway once again, Greg. Greg, if it's not amplifying your frustration about being sidelined, I was going to ask about the Polish Speedway. So the Extraliga playoffs are happening this weekend, or the semi-finals at least, and a notable absence from those playoffs is your team out there, Torun. I wonder if you could share your views on what's happened with your Polish club this year. A disappointing season.
Yeah, well, this has been, for me, it's been a crazy year all around. I went from being in teams for so many years that have been challenging for top positions too. Both my teams in Sweden and Poland this year have been battling to avoid relegation. So the common denominator is me, and I'm not really sure if I can be the one to blame totally, but it seems really strange. You know, we have a really good team on paper, and things didn't happen this year for Torun. You know, everything, when you needed that little bit extra help, it went against you. And normally when you have one guy that's having a bad day, you have 2 or 3 other guys that make up for it. But that didn't happen this year. And even matches we were leading, and then we would lose it in the last 3 or 4 heats by 2 points or 4 points. And it just felt like we were just digging and digging and digging, but going nowhere. So really, really ashamed that I couldn't finish the season with him either. That obviously didn't help. And Majinski was injured for quite a few races here towards the end, and it just felt like it went back and forth. And you know, sometimes it's just not meant to be, and definitely the case this year.
Well, Greg, obviously we are chatting to you ahead of your visit to Scotland, to Glasgow on Wednesday. So what's your itinerary this week? Have you got, are you doing a bit of a visit to UK? Is it just a flying visit to Glasgow?
It's a flying visit to Glasgow, and which is going to be just kind of in and out of there. But I wanted to do it, and I would like to stay longer. However, just commitments here too with the family and the kids, and my kids got quite a few races coming up again next weekend too, and it just feels like it's never ending. So I was happy that this worked out now, and then of course I'm getting to meet up with Gordon Perriman at the same time. So Gordon has been a key link in this whole thing with Glasgow. So I owe a lot of credit to that man, and you know, obviously he's got some special ties to that area up there. So I'm pretty pleased to have this association and to have met great people just because of him.
Yeah, Gordon's a good lad, Greg. You might remember when Brian interviewed you way back in early January, I was trying to persuade you of various strong links you have to the club, and Gordon was one of those links. There was one person, Greg, who I made a mistake and failed to mention that day, and I know it's like a guy who you've got a lot of time for, and that's Glasgow club legend Shane Parker, who I know is a good buddy of yours.
That's right. Yeah. You know what? I mean, Shane and I, we were buddies. Talk about these 250 thing. Like I said, is you meet some people and you become friends with them forever. And Shane is a classic example of that. I met him early in my career over there, and we were buddies for a long time, and even till today. So the Glasgow connection is definitely a good one. I've got friends from all that area, even Edinburgh there, even if I'm allowed to say that around you guys.
You can say that, yeah.
But and then one of the monster photographer, Andy Gordon, he's from Glasgow too, so I'm hoping he's going to make an appearance when I'm coming up there. Otherwise I'll feel like he doesn't care for me.
And finally, Greg, a good chance for you to see some action as well, and I'd imagine you won't have had a chance to see much second tier speedway in Britain over the years, so I guess you'll probably be keeping a close eye on that too, just to see if there's anything that catches your eye.
Absolutely. I mean, I've tried to follow as much as I can. I've run there in summers a couple of times here and there, and then but it's to see the stadium and see I've heard only good things about what's going on in Glasgow, and the future seems pretty bright. Besides that, the amount of credibility you guys get for all your social media and all of the things you do, you've definitely got to be an eye opener for a lot of other clubs. So for me, it's a win-win situation. I'll be really happy to meet up with some of the fans, and I hope that Gordon said he promised me he was going to bring a scarf for me too, so I should be a real Tigers fan.
Greg Hancock, once again. Sorry, yeah, hopefully I'll win. Greg Hancock, thank you once again for allowing us to cut into your family time on a Sunday evening. You're a gentleman. Safe trip to Glasgow on Wednesday. Please do your best to bring some sunshine with you. And everyone at the club, Glasgow fans, we implore you to turn out in force on Wednesday night. First and foremost, to cheer on the Tigers, of course, in a championship clash against Ipswich. And could that be a dress rehearsal for the playoff semi-finals in a few weeks' time? And of course, to meet the world champion himself, who will be a presence at Ashfield this Wednesday night. Tapes up, remember, 7:30. Greg, once again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to your company in Glasgow on Wednesday.
Likewise, you guys. Thanks for your time as well, and I'm really looking forward to this too, so I'll see you soon.